Hey, what is up you guys? Welcome back to my channel. My name is TechTroy, and today I'm going to be answering the question that maybe a couple of people who are thinking about purchasing a game from their favorite distribution platform, digital distribution platform, when they see the system requirements, or in this case sometimes when it's called specifications. What does it actually mean, specifications, anyway? uh, Specifications, or system requirements in short or simpler terms, just basically means what you're going to need to run the game, or either to barely run the game or to run it at the best possible experience. However, it's not um, it's not like you have to follow the system requirements to the T, and I'll explain that in a minute. As you can see right here, it has the minimum section here, which is basically what you basically need to run the game, and then it has a recommended section here for the best experience possible. It comes in different forms of what you're gonna need, like what type of operating system you're gonna need, what kind of processor you're gonna need, how much memory you're gonna need, what kind of API you're gonna have to use, which kind of graphics card you're gonna need. So in this case, I am at Epic Games, and I just searched up WRC10 World Rally Championship here, obviously, and at the bottom here, the developers are saying if you want to barely run the game at the lowest resolution, lowest settings, low frame rate at like 30 frames per second, you're gonna need Windows 10. You're gonna need a Core i3 2100 or an AMD FX 4350. For the RAM, they haven't quite specified, but if I had to guess for myself, it's either probably 8 gigs as a bare minimum to play the game, and you're gonna need to use DirectX 12 as for the API. You're gonna also need, for the graphics card, you're also gonna need to use the NVIDIA GeForce GTX 650, which has 1 gig of RAM, or the AMD Radeon HD 7770, which also has 1 gig of RAM. Uh, but if you want to play the game at the uh, if you want to play the game at the best experience possible, you go to the recommended tab here. What they're saying, you still need to use the same Windows operating system, Windows 10. It also works on Windows 11, by the way. If you have Windows 11, it also works. You also need a Core i5 6600 or an AMD Ryzen 5 1600 processor. They still haven't specified, but again, if I had to guess, it's on the minimum side we said 8 gigs. So on the recommended side, I'm pretty sure we're gonna have to double it to 16 gigs. Still uses the same API, DirectX 12, but on the graphics card side, if you want to play it at the nicer graphical settings, you're gonna need to use a GeForce GTX 1060 6GB or an AMD Radeon RX 590 8GB. Now, again, do you still remember when I said it's not really cut and dried? You don't really have to specifically follow the system requirements to the T, and I'm gonna show you here in a minute. On my system, I was playing the game. I do have the game, by the way. I was playing it on my system, and it is somewhat better. I have an AMD Athlon X4760K and a GeForce GTX 1060, but it's not a 6GB, it's a 3GB one. Now, again, on the minimum side, it says that you need a Core i3, or in this case, let's just say AMD FX 4350 to run the game, which I would say the AMD Athlon X4760K is a step above on the AMD FX 4350, but it's not quite there with the Ryzen 5. It's not even close to the Ryzen 5 1600. And the same thing with the GeForce GTX. despite it being a G1060, it's a 3 gig, not 6 gig. If I go to the capture, because I did record the footage here, and scroll down to WRC10 here and open it up, if we skip to the graphical settings here, as you can see, by default at the graphical settings, the only thing that has to be sacrificed, because I am not matching up with the recommended, is the visibility distance, vegetation density, and the terrain quality, which all three of them has been dumbed down to medium. Other than that, you can play the game at high, which if we start here is playing it at a pretty decent frame rate, around the 50s, close to 60, which is quite smooth. So anyway, anyway, basically what system requirements is, it's more of like a guideline, or yeah, it's more of like a guideline of what you're somewhat going to expect when you're running the game. It's not really about oh, I have to follow the guideline, the specification, otherwise the game will not work. It will probably work, but you just keep in mind you're gonna have to sacrifice something if you're not quite there on the recommended side, but you're definitely over the minimum side. Whatever you do not go any lower than the minimum side, because if you go lower than the minimum side, then the game is going to be straight up unplayable. Let's say, for the sake of argument, you want to play WRC on an Intel Celeron 3060 with an integrated graphics. It will not run at all. It will just not work. If you want to run the game, this is the bare minimum what you're gonna need. Windows 10, Core i3 2100 or AMD FX 4350 with a GeForce GTX 650 1 gig, or AMD Radeon HD 7770 1 gigabyte of VRAM. That's it. Nothing lower than that. However, if you have a machine that is slightly higher, or that is perfectly overkill, then it will run no problem. So anyway, I do hope you enjoyed this video. If it was helpful, please smash that like button, smash that like button, hit that subscribe button, comment down below what you think, or if you have any questions about system requirements, or if I didn't explain something quite well, leave your comments down below. I would actually be glad to answer most of your comments. Yeah, so I've been TechTroy. Thank you for watching.